I'm like a news reporter.
All right, we're live.
We're live. Hello, this is my Brave family. How is everybody? I'm Jennifer Marshall, co-founder and executive director of This Is My Brave, and I am so glad you're here for BraveTV, a special episode. So I've got my team with me, my peeps. So the main concept, just to fill everyone in case you're not familiar with BraveTV, the main concept is to bring stories of hope to the homes of the audiences, to the homes of our audience during the COVID pandemic on a weekly basis. Each week, we are going to be covering topics that our own Brave alumni can lend their expertise on. This gives our alumni an opportunity to share their stories on another platform, to talk about their journey with This Is My Brave, and to offer support and resources to viewers who may be having similar struggles, especially during such a high stress time. And Katie's dogs might make an appearance on the broadcast today.
They might.
We'll hope to behave and they don't bark, but we'll see. This is real life. So today's episode is a meet and greet with our team, the team of This Is My Brave, the staff. So get to know us and how mental health, mental illness has affected each of our lives. We're going to talk about how each of us came to find This Is My Brave and what it's like behind the scenes, especially right now as we pivot our programming due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I am going to start and open with just a little recap of my story. Many of you who have followed This Is My Brave for years are familiar with my story, but for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I'll give a brief overview. So I live with type 1 bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed when I had just turned 26 years old, and I had gone through 2 manic episodes 2 weeks apart within the same month. It was December 2005. I had been working as a very successful recruiter in Washington, D.C. I loved my job. I worked really hard and had worked my way up to being the top recruiter in the company. And I really wasn't taking care of my mental health. And I think that the stress of work and not balancing my mental health caught up with me. I had a week of really hard deadlines and lots of goals to meet, and I didn't sleep for a week. And then a manic episode came out of nowhere and shocked my family, shocked my husband, my friends. In fact, my colleagues were with me that night that it started to come about. And I was in the hospital and then came out and took some time off work, but within 2 weeks, it hit again. And I landed in the hospital on Christmas Day in 2005. And coming out of that hospitalization, my family knew right away that I had to really stop and focus on my health and try to understand what it was that we were dealing with. And we got in to see a very good psychiatrist who diagnosed me. And I began on a treatment plan and had to then take a long 1.5 years to figure out what medicine would work for me. Tried many different medicines and dealt with severe anxiety, crippling. I would wake up every morning with waves of anxiety that I didn't understand how to control. I didn't understand anything about mental health back then. And I was just so fortunate to have good care, good insurance, extremely supportive family. My husband never gave up on me. And towards the end of that year of 2006, I had a medication change that actually led to a side effect of suicidal thoughts. Scared all of us so much. And I brought it up. We talked to my doctor. Medicine shifted to something different, which ended up being the medicine that I needed. So I started to get back on my feet and I started to feel my confidence coming back. And I got another job as a recruiter in a much less stressful environment. And And then we decided I had been stable for a year and we wanted to try for a family. And when we did, my episodes came back again, and I had postpartum psychosis 4 weeks after the birth of my first child, and I had to be hospitalized for a week, and I had what's called antenatal psychosis when I was pregnant with my daughter, my second child, when I was 5 weeks pregnant, and had to be hospitalized, had to be put on psychiatric medications, antipsychotics. I was medication free for my first pregnancy, but so that's a lot of what I dealt with when I was learning my mental health and understanding my condition. And when I got past those 4 hospitalizations that happened within 5 years, and I started, I was a stay-at-home mom. I was taking care of my kids, but I was also coming to grips with my diagnosis, and I was finding other stories because I was desperate. I knew that I felt so alone. I felt like I was the only person who had ever gone through this, because the 2 times actually that I was taken to the hospital when I was having my kids, I was taken on an involuntary commitment. So I was taken by police officers in handcuffs in a police car, and it was very traumatic. And so felt so isolated. But when I started looking for other people telling their stories, I found that they were out there, and I connected with them through blogging. I started writing about my story, first anonymously. And then when I realized that the connections were being made through my vulnerability, I opened up and I got a chance to write for a major website. And when my piece was published with my real name, people in my community who didn't know my full story reached out to me and said, "Thank you so much for being open about your story. Like, my sister has dealt with this, or my mom dealt with this. And I just am so glad that you're sharing." And then, they would tell me their story because I had been open. I knew that there was a need for something like This Is My Brave. And then I met Anne Marie. And we were at a party, a mutual friend, and we connected because I talked to her. I said, "I have this idea. I want to launch something to give people space to tell their stories." And she said, "My family's been touched by mental illness. My son, my family, myself, I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with anxiety." And she wanted to help me. And we launched This Is My Brave. And the rest is history, kind of. I mean, it just snowballed after that. It was people in other communities saying, "This is so needed. I want to help. I want to do what I can to bring it to my town." And the first year we expanded in 2015 to Iowa City with Brooke and Lisa, and Boston with Logan and Amy, and New York with Lauren and his team. And we went out to Los Angeles and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Like, we did 6 shows that first year we expanded, and then it just kept growing and growing. And to date, we've done 70 shows across the country, over 825 people have become a part of this community, and we have a lot of exciting things going on, which we're going to talk about today. So that's kind of my overview and why I started this organization. And I'm so honored that these incredible women have joined me and have stepped up and put in all the hard work that we've put in to build it to where it is today. So I would love to introduce our team. So today, Erin, give a wave. Erin's here, Erin Gallagher. We've got Katie Grana. I feel like I'm on Hollywood Squares.
You are.
We've got Anastasia, Vlasova, our intern. So I'm going to give them each a chance to talk about what brought them to This Is My Brave, why they got involved, and we'll go one by one. So Erin, will you lead us off?
Sure, of course. Jen, I just wanted to say, just in some of the work, I love the picture of you in the black and white dress, and you have maybe green on somewhere, and you're holding, you have Anne Marie's hand, and just the look in your face, like it must be your first show.
It was.
And it like this must be the payoff for photographers, because it just like just the look that you're giving her, the exchange that you all have in that moment is so powerful.
Yeah.
Like, wow, we did it, right?
That's what I said to her.
So,
That's what I said.
Yeah.
At the end of that show, we grabbed hands on stage and I looked at her and I said, we did it. And that's what that feeling, and Julie McCarter caught that photo for us. So thank you, Julie.
Like we did also
So good.
for the Hershey show. We were like, it happened.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah.
Yep.
So I started working with Jen, and this is my Brave last May, I think was my first month. I'd done a little bit of part-time stuff before, but last May. So we're celebrating 1 year together now. And Jen and I met probably in 2016, following the death of my son. He died by suicide. And my husband and I became pretty vocal about what we could be doing in our community to prevent suicides of teenagers. And through that platform, Jen and I became acquainted and started talking about the work that she does and what we hope to see. And at some point, just one day at coffee, Jen said, would you ever think about leaving what you're doing and joining forces with me? And I was like, yeah. I mean, as I knew that I really wanted to be doing the work and breaking stigma, doing something to help others get through their struggles, the way that Jay just couldn't. So I think he suffered with stigma. And so that the platform of This Is My Brave is to break down stigma and increase help-seeking behavior. It just seems like, just such an important thing to do. Also just to take away the anonymity and just, help people understand they're not alone when they're suffering. I just think that's such an important, I think we talk all the time today now about the importance of social connectedness. And when people feel isolated, their symptoms get worse and their ability to cope with what they're dealing with just becomes more and more difficult. So happy to join this organization and help share this wonderful message and help connect people. I love to see the connections that are happening among our cast members. I love to see the connections of audience members. It's just every time at every show when we say, if you or anybody you know has been touched by mental illness, please stand up. And the whole place gets me.
Yeah, it gets me every time too.
Yeah.
There's not one of us that isn't touched by these issues.
Yeah. So, if we can keep doing what we're doing, and we've had to pivot here, and we'll talk today a little bit more about the ways that we're finding to connect, since we can't be on stage live and we can't present those stories live right now, that we can at least continue to tell stories and take them to the people who need to hear them the most, especially in a time like now when more and more people are feeling alone and uncertain about how things are going for themselves. So we'll talk about all that today. So I'll stop now and let Katie introduce herself. But thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me do this work. I love it. Love doing it.
Katie, let's go. Yeah, thank you, Erin. And I was wondering, actually, Katie, you wrote up our flow, but
yeah. What?
But Katie, should Erin talk about what she's leading right now for Brave during her time?
Whatever you think.
Or do we want to come back? Yeah, let's go. Erin, do you mind giving kind of an overview of like that you're leading the high school initiative right now and how that's grown
Sure.
since you've been on?
Yeah. So when I first started in May, we were just getting into the idea of putting on a high school edition of This Is My Brave. So the very same show, except only casting cast members who are in high school, just because we know that teenagers especially need to hear the hope-giving, life-saving message of storytelling. So we launched our first high school edition last fall in Hershey, PA, which happens to be Jen's hometown. And there we had a wonderful show. We featured a few storytellers. We had this wonderful chorus of teenagers who each shared a snippet of their story and then stood together kind of in solidarity on stage. And then we followed that up with a panel discussion by some experts in teen psychology, school psychology, and that was a wonderful experience. And so we've decided this year to run, again, a second high school edition here in the DC area. I say here, I'm actually in Central Virginia now, but I still think of DC area as my home. So we're inviting teens from Fairfax County, Loudoun County, Montgomery County, DC public schools, anybody who's enrolled in high school and has a story to tell about their lived experience with mental illness or addiction, and they have a creative way of expressing it, either through essay or song, poetry. We've already launched our auditions, and we've had several kids come out and share some of their story with us. So, but we're continuing to look for more students who can round out that cast for us. We'll be probably presenting a virtual show in October because of just the regulations surrounding public gatherings at this point. We suspect that we probably won't have the ability at that point to pull 300 people together in a theater. So we're thinking of virtual options now, but we're going to give them the stage. We're going to put the spotlight on them and let these teens tell their stories in hopes of inspiring others. So doing that, and then also working on another show in Hampton Roads that'll be presented in much the same way. That's a regular show. And in addition, we're considering a national show for next spring, but we're kind of taking that one day by day to see where we can go with that, considering COVID-19 and what schools and regular, communities are doing about that. So,
yep, that show will definitely take the stage eventually in 2021. We're getting all those plans set, and looking for teens from across the country. So if you're a teen out there watching, I don't know that many teens are on Facebook these days, right, Anastasia?
Not so much, but
you never know. There might be parents out there watching that know that their teens care about mental health. So we'd recommend checking out our website. We just launched a new website last month. Gosh, we launched it in March, actually, in the midst of all this when COVID first came out. So that's where you can find all the information about the high school edition shows that we're planning, that Erin's working so hard on, and that the national call for teen storytellers. So thank you, Erin, for everything you bring to This Is My Brave and honoring Jay's story too. And
sure.
Katie,
all right.
will you give us your
intro? I do want to really quick make a shout out to Larissa, who commented on Facebook about asking if we would do a military veteran show. We are all about that, and we would love to. Something that we do have coming up in the near future, though, is Memorial Day weekend. We're going to do a veteran edition of BraveTV, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I didn't want to miss that comment. So I'm Katie Grana. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. When I was 22, I was robbed at gunpoint. It was almost 10 years ago. And that was when my journey with mental health really began. I didn't know that it affected me so much. It took about 6 months for that to really start affecting me. I lost a friend in a car accident, and then everything just stopped. So I started having physical reactions to stress. I was going to the doctor all the time, trying to figure out like what's wrong with me, it has to be this, it has to be that. And they kept coming back and saying it's stress. Like you are living with post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety and depression, and we need to start to manage that. So at the time, I was so just desperate for help that I wanted to do anything that I could. So I also went through the medication trials. It's a really difficult time to go through when you're trying different medications. But at some point, you find something that works for you. And I did all different kinds of therapy. So over the last 10 years, it's been a buildup of like building my coping skills and, learning my triggers. I still have flashbacks. I still have trigger points. I still have anxiety attacks, but it's a little bit more manageable for me now. Or I can at least anticipate things a little bit better. So dealing with mental health and feeling like I had to grow up like faster than maybe my friends did, or deal with things that they didn't have to deal with, really made me want to advocate for mental health, but I never really knew how to do it because I didn't go to school for counseling or therapy or anything, so I didn't know how I could do that. So in June of 2018, I lost one of my best friends, Jason Clayfish, to suicide. And Jason was one of my allies in mental health. But he struggled in silence a lot, except for people really close to him. So losing him was just my wake-up call, really. That I was like, I don't want my life to be touched by suicide again. And Jason was really big in the performing arts. He was an incredible writer and actor. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to find a nonprofit that pairs performing arts with mental illness. And I was like looking in the St. Louis area, and I couldn't find anything. And then all of a sudden I go national, and This Is My Brave pops up, and I was like, woohoo, is this? This is the most magical organization ever. So I reached out to them right away, and I was like, I need to bring this to St. Louis. I need to bring a show to St. Louis. And Jen and her team were like, okay, find a theater and like, then we'll talk. I got a theater. And then I went to DeKalb, Illinois to see a show live in April of last year. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just as wonderful as I thought it was. And so we committed to doing a show in St. Louis, which unfortunately now has been postponed due to COVID. But then in August of last year, or really, I guess it was in like June or July, Jen had posted on Facebook that they were looking to hire a program manager in the DC area. And I was like, hi.
I have to say, Katie was the first person to apply for the job. But I didn't, I went through all the applications, and then I get to Katie's because she was the first one. I hadn't started going through them till a week or two later. And I knew, Katie, from the second we talked on the phone that day, that you were the one for that job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was literally like the stars aligned and everything fell into place. And so this is my way of like honoring myself, honoring Jason, honoring Erin and Jay and anyone else who has like lost someone to suicide, because it can affect anyone. And I think especially like with what's going on now, people are really struggling and are going to continue to struggle with mental health. And it's so important for us. And I mean, we're struggling too. Like, let's be real as a team. Like, we struggle too. So
yep.
We all have like moments or days that are hard. This isn't easy on anyone. So this is just my way to like really give back and turn my grief into action, and try to like take control of something that I can in helping people. And Elise, I see your message about EMDR. I did do EMDR. I did not do it virtually, but I did it in a therapist's office. I did it a long, so also EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy for trauma survivors. When I did it, it was very much geared towards military veterans. And so I had to get like special approval for it. But the EMDR saved my life. Like I will, it's not going to have the same effect for everyone. No therapy is going to have the same effect for everyone. But EMDR was one of the most beneficial treatments I've gone through. So I would stick with it. It's not going to be an overnight change or improvement. You notice it over time. But definitely do what works for you. But yeah, I love EMDR. So yeah, that's how I came here to This Is My Brave. And I love being here. So thanks, Jen.
Well, thank you for applying, taking that risk.
I can't believe
taking the chance with us. Thanks, Katie, for sharing your story.
Yeah.
Now it's Anastasia's turn, the youngest member of Team My Brave. And
Hi, I'm Anastasia. I'm 17, and I'm a junior in high school right now. So my mental health journey is a little bit different. Well, obviously. It started in 8th grade for me because I felt really alone during that time. And I think middle school is just tough for anyone. I'm sure we all remember the horrible flashbacks from that awkward stage in our lives. But it started in 8th grade, and I was just feeling very isolated from the rest of my classmates, and I felt like I didn't have anyone close to me and anyone that I could relate to, especially with my family situation and just other things like that. So I started keeping to myself a lot, and what I was doing was basically subconsciously just suppressing all of my emotions and not dealing with them in a healthy manner. But then again, now that I look back at that, there was no way that I could deal with it in any other way, just because we were never taught how to cope with our emotions, especially at that age. So what I did was I used to play tennis really competitively when I was in middle school and early high school. And that's when I got into working out and eating healthy and just going to the gym and practicing tennis and everything. And so initially, it really helped me a lot with my emotions and dealing with, now looking back, I see that it was most likely depression. So I would deal with my depression by exercising because of the endorphins. It made me feel better and everything. And I just kind of developed new hobbies like cooking healthy meals. But then all of those things turned into like extremities. And so I just began eating super duper healthy and categorizing everything that wasn't considered healthy as bad. And then all of that just turned into an eating disorder, which I'd never been diagnosed for, but that's why I try to call it disordered eating, actually, not eating disorder, just because I'm not a doctor. So yeah, that turned into really unhealthy eating patterns and just this cycle that seemed like unable to break, basically, especially going through it alone. I didn't talk to anyone about it, and I didn't for years, actually, just because I thought that all of my friends were doing fine, and I just felt very ashamed and embarrassed about my situation, and I didn't really know who to reach out to. And I found that the counseling resources at my school were not that great with helping at all, actually. We probably had 3 or 4 counselors for a school of 800 in middle school, I think, or possibly even more students, but there weren't enough resources for that. So I kind of dealt with it on my own. I started journaling and reading books about psychology just because those turned into some of my hobbies. And I think that's when I really started to learn more about the brain and how humans work and why we do the things that we do and what we can do to improve our mental state. And so I really got into that. And then in high school, I got involved with the Our Minds Matter Club, which actually was started it started the beginning of junior year. It feels like I've been in it longer, but it's actually only been a year. So I've been part of that, and I'm the co-president of it right now with 2 other girls. And I was introduced to this club through my counselor, actually, because I reached out to her last year. Sorry if that's confusing, but I reached out to her last year before because I wanted to start a club at my school about mental health, just because I found that, again, we were really lacking the mental health resources at our school. So I contacted her, and she suggested that I go to this leadership training that Our Minds Matter was holding. And that's where I met Lauren Anderson and Laura Beth, who are the leaders of Our Minds Matter. And I found out that their foundation that leads all of these clubs and schools was started because of Laura Anderson's brother, who passed away from suicide years ago. And he actually went to my school. And so I really felt a personal connection to the club, and I decided to implement one at our school and take a leadership role in it and see how far we could take it, how many members we could get, and how much help we could provide for our students. And now I think we have around 30 members, and around 15 show up consistently every other week when we used to meet, obviously before COVID. And through that club, I started doing more of their quarterly leadership trainings, where I started meeting a lot of other kids from other schools who were doing things for mental health. And so I got super duper inspired, and I realized that I really wasn't alone at all, and that a lot of students were going through this. And especially as I was getting older, and now I'm an upperclassman at my high school, I've noticed that especially academics have become a lot more rigorous because we're getting closer to college, and just the whole preparation process is so difficult and challenging and really competitive. And I think that especially in IB, the program that I'm in, the atmosphere can be very competitive, and like you have to have everything together all the time, and if you don't, then you're kind of failing. And that's definitely what caused me the most stress, just because I thought I had to present this like perfect facade, but obviously I couldn't sustain that for not even like several months, honestly, because it just got to one of my breaking points where I was facing extreme anxiety, and I just like couldn't sleep at night. And that's when I decided to do something about it. So in November, there was an audition for the Josh Anderson Foundation's annual ball for a student keynote speaker. And that's where I submitted my speech, because I had always been kind of nervous about speaking in front of people, but I always had a desire to do it because I thought that I had something to say, and I felt that I had enough courage to go out of my comfort zone and speak up for kids who maybe weren't in the place to speak up for themselves. And so that's the first time that I really shared my mental health story openly. And I spoke to a room of like 200 or 300 people. And after I finished my speech, I remember there was this moment of silence, and I was like, oh God, it wasn't really that horrible. Like no one was clapping or anything. But then eventually people stood up and they clapped and everything. And as I was walking down the steps from the stage, like 50 people just started coming to me and shaking my hand and telling me that, like, thank you for what I'm doing and everything. And then some of my other co-presidents and other student leaders from the OMM clubs, they were also there, and they were telling them that my speech really helped them, and that they even cried, and that, you know, all of this stuff. And I realized that my voice and my writing can have a really huge impact on students and adults and just the mental health community in general. So that's when I really wanted to get even more involved. And then I was introduced to Jennifer through a woman that I'd met at the ball. And then when I got in contact with Jennifer.
Shout out to Gail if you're watching.
Oh, yeah, Gail! Woo! She's, yeah. I love her. So, yeah, I was introduced to Jen, and then we started talking about her organization, and I thought that it was literally the perfect mix for someone like me, because I've always wanted to public speak. I didn't know how to do it or where to do it, especially about mental health, like in an environment that wasn't school associated, because I really like that the fact that This Is My Brave isn't at all like affiliated with schools. It's its own thing. And so I really wanted to audition for one of your guys' shows, This Is My Brave shows. And then we started getting into other stuff like social media and running the This Is My Brave Teens account and everything. And I realized that I could do a lot more than just participate in their shows. So that's how I became their intern. Thank you very much, Jennifer. I still don't know how that happened, but thank you.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so now we're launching our mental health podcast. I'm allowed to say that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Like, uh-oh.
We're giving the behind the scenes. Like a lot of folks haven't heard that we're launching a podcast, but you are the force behind it. And we're so excited that you are going to be the host. So stay tuned for more on that. But we are recording, and Anastasia is going to be interviewing other teens to talk about, right? Like what it's been like through COVID and adjusting and managing mental health.
And we're starting that podcast to basically just break down the stigma again and hear other people's stories again, because that's kind of the foundation of This Is My Brave. Just introducing it through a different platform, podcasting, which I really love because, again, it combines speaking and also mental health and everything, and meeting new people and hearing new.
And the reason it was such a great fit, right? Because you had already.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I also had last summer, I started a podcast with two of my friends, The Epic Theory, and the whole purpose of it was to empower and uplift young people to basically pursue self-growth, step out of their comfort zones, and just become the best version of themselves and do what they love to do. And I found that platform was it was a really good fit for me because I was able to do it with two of my friends. So we got to talk amongst each other and just hear different perspectives and share different ideas. And so I knew that when Jennifer and I were discussing doing the Brave Wave podcast, it would be a wonderful fit. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about the podcast to mention is that you guys will not only be like talking about teen mental health and situations, but also giving perspective to parents about how to talk to their kids, or vice versa, kids like students your age, how to talk to their parents, because we know there's a big barrier there. So it's important for us to help break that down.
Yeah, and on the podcast, we also hope to include other like wellness tips. So just overall, like mental health, we're keeping it very broad just because there are so many things that go into the topic of mental health. So we really want to make sure we provide a really well-rounded perspective through each episode that we put out.
Yeah.
It's super exciting. And we have a major sponsor on board. I don't know if we're allowed to say at this moment, but when it gets released, you will hear about that major sponsor. So we'll keep that under wraps. But stay tuned and definitely follow This Is My Brave Teens on Instagram, because Anastasia gives all kinds of behind the scenes updates there too. And Erin, what were you going to say?
Well, Anastasia did also come out for the high school show. So so hopefully, we definitely keeping her in mind for that fall show. So, but it'll be a chance, you can if folks are interested, watch for that. And then you can hear Anastasia's story. That might be very similar to the one she told on the stage at Josh Anderson Foundation, but that's also a good point that we are partnering for this show in the fall with Josh Anderson Foundation and Our Minds Matter. They're helping us do some promotion for that show, and also helping us with the promotion of our 2021 Teen National Show.
And we had another exciting project kind of go out into the world just yesterday, which Anastasia was a part of as well. And today her first video went out. So we are working with WETA and Principal Pictures, which produced our short documentary film back in 2018, a couple years ago. We've been hearing from teens across the U.S. about their mental health and how they, what happened when COVID first hit, how they adjusted to school being out and activities being canceled and prom being canceled, and, what they were doing to juggle school and work even and life, and mental health. And it's been eye-opening and fascinating to hear these teens share their stories through video diaries. These are just so raw and intimate view into their lives. And just yesterday, the promotional video went out. So we would encourage you to follow the website wellbeings.org, and you can follow the project all the way through Mental Health Month and beyond, where all these teens are sharing their stories, and the video diaries are being released through YouTube and all their social channels. So definitely check them out. And it's a really, really crucial project that we're honored to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So, Katie, what else is on our agenda?
How are we coping with COVID? So do you want to talk about like how we're like our content and how we're transitioning our shows and everything? Should we go there first?
Yeah. Do you want to give an update?
Sure. So when COVID hit, this is My Brave has a spring season and a fall season typically. So COVID hit and we made actually some pretty early decisions about postponing our shows, which was really difficult to make, especially myself being a producer of a show, and I have a cast here in St. Louis that, like, I mean, I've been dreaming about this for like a year and a half now, and to all of a sudden have it taken away was really difficult. And we have Houston and Iowa City and New Hampshire and Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Plus, we had our All-Star show as well.
All-Star show. So we are transitioning everything to be virtual, basically. We don't fully know what that looks like yet for the fall, but we will be like live streaming our shows, and it's like we have a lot of like chaos go on behind the scenes of like certain things and trying to figure things out. But at the same time, we're like trying to take this opportunity to grow as an organization and meet people where they are. And like, if it means,
yeah, I have to address what you mean by that chaos. Because my guess, you're referring to, I mean, episode 1 of BraveTV, that's what Katie means by meeting you guys where you are. All of our fans, our followers, our Brave community, we want to be with you during this time that we're all struggling through. And so we really scrambled as an organization. Not only were we shifting our entire spring calendar to the fall and beyond, so our All-Star show is postponed to 2021 because we want it to be a time of celebrating being able to be back together in a large group. So that is postponed until we know we can comfortably do that. And then having to shift the spring schedule to the fall and figure out how do we feasibly get these stories out into the world, get these storytellers onto our stage in a capacity that will be a wonderful experience for them and will bring these stories into your homes virtually. So we're working on that right now. But the other thing is we scrambled to be able to create this BraveTV because we wanted to bring our stories, which we know are so powerful, from our alumni community that mean so much to us. And so we learned it on the fly. We literally learned it that day that Katie and I set it up. That's Katie, one of Katie's main programs as program manager. And we were, behind the scenes shuffling things, and Katie managed everything, the flow of everything. And then every week we want to bring this to you and bring new stories. So Katie, will you give them a brief overview of the next couple weeks, a little sneak peek?
Yeah. So this Saturday, it will be a maternal mental health episode honoring Mother's Day and obviously maternal mental health. It is Maternal Mental Health Week, I believe, right now. And I think tomorrow is Maternal Mental Health Awareness Day. After that, the following week, we are going to do a like school COVID session, our episode of like students that were maybe supposed to graduate, how it's affecting them. And then we'll be doing our veteran show. And then we are going to do an episode with Go Fetch Wellness to really talk about like pets and mental health, and how animals can be so therapeutic for us, because I know I lean on my dogs a lot as my...
And our cats.
Yeah. And
I have a goldfish.
Yes, really, honestly, when I got my first dog, I was really not in a good place. But having something to take care of besides myself was really beneficial for me. She made me go outside. She made me like be on somewhat of a schedule and have something to be responsible for. So that's the kind of thing. And then we'll be doing a comedy episode, and we have all sorts of ideas. So
yeah,
and they'll all be our alumni, because they're pretty cool anyway. So it'll give them an opportunity to tell their stories again.
And we share the recording then on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and watch BraveTV whenever you want. So we're happy to make these stories available. So what else? I have to bring up TikTok, because TikTok is a place where we created a TikTok channel for This Is My
Jennifer is the TikTok queen.
I love TikTok. It's such a fun distraction. It seriously is. Now, I will say, there's some junk on there, just like there is on every other social media channel. If you can look past the garbage, and there's funny TikToks, there's interesting TikToks, you can learn stuff on there, seriously. And then there's just there's even like calming TikToks. There are therapists on there that do meditation exercises, and then of course there's the dances, and there's the lip syncing, and it's just such a fun distraction and so for the This Is My Brave TikTok channel, we've uploaded some of our favorite moments from our shows. So I'd really encourage you guys, if you have some time, if you've downloaded TikTok and you're trying it on your own, look up This Is My Brave and give us a follow and check out our videos and share them with people, because you will see there are clips, and these are the must-see moments from our shows. Mm-hmm. So you'll see a clip from a show that, oh my gosh, I have to share it with so-and-so. And you can use that share button and share it out via text, or, different ways. You can post it to Facebook. You can do different things. So I would say check out TikTok. We did it. Okay. So Erin was the driving force, I think, behind that too.
Mm-hmm. She was.
Erin, tell everyone. You persisted.
Well, because we were doing so many promotions, trying to connect with teens, and I have teenagers at home, and this is what they're doing. They're all over TikTok. And so I said, if we want to get in front of teens, if we want for them to see our message, I think we need to be on TikTok. We need to be sharing this information there. And so Jen's initial reaction was like, I don't know. Anastasia was still a little lukewarm about the TikTok scene. And so we let it lay for a while. And then I just kept noticing that this is where my kids spent hours. And then when the quarantine started to be kicking in, I was like, okay, now people are going to be ramping up their time on TikTok. And so I think we really should put something out there. Now, I don't know how good it's been about recruiting teens for us so far. We haven't, I don't think, I can't really see a direct correlation, but I do know that Jen is getting to showcase some really amazing dance skills on her own personal page. And I do love to see the clips of,
you just need her to go viral.
Performers. If you can't Yeah, if you can't get to YouTube and dedicate, 5 minutes for to hear somebody's piece, we've picked out the best 30 seconds or the best 60 seconds of people's pieces and shared, and it's very inspirational. And so we have that. At least we have that.
And full disclosure, Jen ends almost every one of our staff calls, or like the me, Jen, and Erin calls with, go make a TikTok. And
yeah,
she'll do it every time.
Not so great at making the TikToks myself. So
they're fun.
I can watch a lot of TikToks. There's a lot of entertaining stuff out there for sure. It can really get you for a while.
You can get sucked into the vortex of TikTok, so you have to be careful.
Yeah.
But they are entertaining, and I do think, I am so glad, Erin, you kept persisting, because I do think it's important to meet them where they are, and that's what we're trying to do. I think it's only going to grow. We do have, I think we've got almost 500 followers there, so it's growing.
Whoa. Very good. Yeah.
What else, Katie? What else are we covering?
Well, I was going to ask you something. I meant to ask you this before, so I wasn't putting you on the spot. But I want to say that
that's okay.
Something that I love about our organization is that we really, and our team, and even our extended team, is that we all really care about each other and each other's well-being. And I've never worked for a company or an organization that is quite like this. But Jen, like, why, as our employer, as our boss and our leader, like, why is it so important for you to acknowledge our like mental health and well-being? And what do you think that does for your organization? Because a lot of people are going to be, employers and everyone are going to be struggling with this probably right now and moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's just important to create an open dialogue, an open atmosphere. I mean, I put all my therapy sessions on my calendar, Jen, online therapy. We give each other that grace of, hey, I'm having a rough day. I need to take an hour here, a couple hours here, or whatever, to decompress. It's just, to me, it's just being human and having that connection and caring about your team and your employees' mental well-being. I mean, I want you guys to just feel good about work and feel good about, knowing that you can come to me and take that extra time, because I would want that for myself. I feel like I hope I model that for you guys too, that if I'm having a rough time, and in fact I did, I had a rough time in March when this all hit and had to spend extra time working with my doctor and adjusting my medication. And people have varying degrees of their wanting to be open, and that's totally fine too. It's just knowing that you can always take that time for yourself. It just makes your team stronger, I think.
Yeah, it does. I mean, this was always like the work environment that I wanted, and it does exist. So, and it can exist. So I think it's important for like managers and employers to like take this into consideration moving forward, because not just because I'm having a good experience, but because this is going to be so important. People's mental health and changing of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, what you're probably thinking of is, like, right now the lines are so blurred.
Yes.
Between work and home.
Yes.
And I'm still, even 2 months into it, I'm still adjusting on making that separation, right? Because, I'm lucky I have a space in a room that was fairly empty. I could set up a little home office. But but we all have to be juggling. I know Erin, her husband's working from home and her daughters are home, and they have studying they have to be doing, and you have to be sharing bandwidth and all that kind of stuff. And I'm juggling my 2 kids and their homeschool stuff. And so we adjust our schedule. So I might work later in the evenings because I take a couple extra hours during the day to be checking in on the kids and what they're doing. And so that's going to be important, I think, as we continue to address COVID and the work from home situation, that employers give that flexibility and the openness of, hey, I can't be on from this time frame. My kids got their online school. I got to be with them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking a toll, but I think employers can adjust.
Yeah. And I think like having trust is really important too, and you're in each other. So
Great. I wonder if anyone watching has any questions for us. Amy Barnaby mentioned
Hi, Amy.
online therapy. Hi, Amy. She misses the office, going in to see her therapist, and I can totally relate. I used to do in-person therapy, but ever since about 8 or 9 months ago, I started using BetterHelp.com, and it's online therapy, and it has changed everything for me. I don't know that I'll ever go back to in-person because it saves you that time of having to drive to an office and drive home. And in the DC metro area where the traffic is so bad, that was a game changer for me. And BetterHelp has an offer that we are extending to our community. You can try them for 1 month free by using the code ThisIsMyBrave, or just go to betterhelp.com/thisismybrave. And I know several of my friends have actually started trying BetterHelp and they are having a good experience. So I've had a great experience ever since being matched up with my therapist. So would highly recommend giving it a shot.
Like, I think there is like something valuable about like your safe space, like this other space that you can go to and have a conversation with your therapist, and you're comfortable. And it is, I think we're all just adapting right now to whatever we can do. And I'm thankful for our therapists that are acting like total superheroes right now, dealing with life themselves, and then also still here to help all of us. So
maybe, Katie, we could wrap up by going around and asking everybody to share like one thing that's maybe helped them the most since this all hit.
Okay.
In terms of managing their mental health. Erin, do you want to start?
Sure. This is not very original, but going out for walks, I should be doing 2 a days at this point. We've got a lot of time to burn. And I need to go for a walk. The dog needs to go for a walk. So trying to make some of them power walks, some of them nice leisurely walks through the woods with him. And that's really, I learned a thing. I was reading something online, and there's this Japanese thing called a forest shower or forest. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Forest
bathing.
Jen told me about that.
So I know that was a thing. I go through the woods with the dog, and it just feels like, it's so, the light streams in the morning through the trees, and you hear all the birds and rustling. The other day I saw a black snake darting away from us. A lot of exciting things going on, but it's quiet. Nobody's really back there. And then I heard this expression, forest bathing, and I really thought, like, that makes sense to me. There's something about the smells, things when it's been raining, it's different. If it's drier, it's different. Like, there's just, you experience nature like full on right there. And that's been really wonderful. So I wasn't doing that before, but I'm making a point to. And when I skip a day or two and I think, I really don't have time for that, or I'm not feeling up for it, I can feel the difference inside me. So I would just, it doesn't have to be rigorous, just some time outside, close to nature, it's been really beneficial.
I love that. I didn't know about forest bathing either until I was at the NBC4 Health and Fitness Expo, and a lady came up to our table and said,
Hey,
do you know about forest bathing? And she gave me some information. I thought it was really cool.
Alyssa just asked what it is.
does she have an organization? Can I look it up?
There is, and I feel terrible that I can't remember the name of it, but you can Google it. There's lots of info out there about it's a real therapy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now I'm feeling like I should go find other places, like other forests to explore, you know, and I'm sure there are plenty of them one day that I can go. So
yeah, that's a good one. What about you, Anastasia? What about you? What are you doing? What's your number one go-to in coping with the pandemic?
It's kind of a whole mix of things, but I think one thing that's really been helping me out a lot is prioritizing my sleep and going to sleep early, because as a high schooler, we definitely were a little bit sleep deprived prior to COVID, but I think that this is a really good chance to catch up on all that sleep. And also, I've heard from a lot of my friends, they're saying that they're lacking that structure, especially because online school doesn't really give them that. And the days seem to flow from one to another instead of being separate days. So I try to go to sleep or get into bed at around 9:30, and then I usually wake up on my own at like 7:30. And I think that having that full period of time for rest is really, really important in maintaining my mental health, and also just like reduces my anxiety by a lot, I think, when you get enough rest. And yeah, that's my tip.
I love that. Having that natural sleep rhythm is really important. That's great. Katie, what about you?
I'm kind of a combination of those. I've been walking my dogs a lot more, which is fun and gets me outside and is great. Getting good sleep is really important. It's really important. And then also I've just been trying to, like, I'm again having like physical stress responses to all of this. So like my body knows I'm stressed before I do. So it's really about like listening to my body and honoring what like I need to do each day, like taking it day by day and step by step. Like if I don't get my laundry done, or like, it's okay. So just really honoring those little things, that whatever I feel like doing in the moment, that's going to make me like the best version of myself that day, even if that best version is like sending one email or like taking a shower or whatever it is. That's what I've been trying to do to help myself stay above water.
I love that. I would have to say for me, I miss my yoga classes. I used to go to a studio and practice hot yoga. And instead, I'm enjoying our yoga sessions with Casey on Wednesdays. So they're shifting to 12 noon Eastern time Wednesdays. I hope you guys can join us. And this Friday, we're also offering a mindfulness workshop. John Paris from our Los Angeles cast back in 2017, he's a marriage and family counselor. He will be leading it. You can sign up on our website. And I think what else, guys? And then tune into BraveTV again on Saturday too. And I think, and there's Tila.
Here's my friend, one of them.
She made it appear. So cute. Aw. Well, so thank you everyone for joining us for this very special edition of BraveTV. I'm so pleased I was able to get the crew together and introduce them formally, because you guys have been working so hard behind the scenes, and you know, we're not always out there like this, kind of right in your face. So here we are. We wanted to bring it to you, and just let you know we're hanging in there just like everybody else. So stay well, and reach out to us if you need us, and stay brave.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, team.
Bye.
Bye, team.